State-owned enterprises are commercial organizations where the state owns all or a majority of the equity of a corporation. A typical state-owned enterprise operates on commercial lines, maintains its own budget and accounts, pays taxes on profits, and retains surpluses if there is any. They are normal business organizations, and its basic activities are that of a normal firm, but because some or all of the management is run by the government, it will be open to direct governmental influence. With the majority of the equity being owned by the government, while they are normal industries that provide a good or service, they are sometimes granted special privileges and/or subsidies to promote a better economy. These enterprises are normally operated in the general public interest rather than having its main objective be the accumulation of capital or the maximization of profit. They are very common across the world, but in the U.S. there is comparatively much fewer. Examples of state-owned enterprises most people can recognize are the Fannie Mae Loan and Mortgage Group, the United States Postal Service, the National Railroad Passenger Corporation, also known as Amtrak, and the Federal Reserve. Also, most recently, AIG and General Motors can be considered state-owned enterprises because the U.S. government acquired a majority of their stock.
Help is on the way for AIG. The government has agreed to provide an $85 billion emergency loan to help rescue the insurance giant. Bankers and federal officials decided
There are many state-owned enterprises in China, but the large ones require a lot of subsidies to keep running. They employ millions of people and provide essential goods and services in their economy. About 70% of the labor force in China are employed by a state-owned enterprise. However, this sector only provides 40% of the total output of labor. It is not economically or politically feasible to shut them down, even though they operate in deficit or are marginally profitable because of how many people they employ. As technology gets better in other firms, the problem of relative inefficiency gets worse because these state-owned enterprises cannot afford it. The profit they receive goes off the paying debts, so as Chinese firms modernize, the state-owned enterprise sector falls behind more and more as time goes by. The Chinese government reports that state-owned enterprises make a profit of around $6 billion a year, but that doesn't include a total of $18 billion in subsidies paid to keep them running. There has been recent efforts to correct this problem, including enterprise resource planning. Even with the effort, some state-owned enterprises have reached their limit and need to lay off many employees or even shut down. To prevent shutting down, some of these companies have tried to convert to the private sector, though that would require laying many people off because the subsidies would disappear. This has to be done assuming these companies have reached their limit and can no longer operate under their current situations.
Out flyers in the building's lobby to protest against jobs and benefits lost during their company's restructuring from a state-owned to a private enterprise. A crowd of around 500 people blocked a road outside China's biggest compressor manufacturer in Jingdezhen, Jiangxi province, after the company laid off 300 workers. The CCP passed a 2-year fiscal stimulus package this month, but analysts say the nearly $600 billion will probably not be able to check rising unemployment before next year.
State-owned enterprises can be successful if you are looking to accomplish certain objectives with the knowledge that you might have to give up profit and capital to achieve them. The main objectives is usually to correct market failure and to create a centralized plan for companies to better the economy. There are also state-owned enterprises that do not work, such as in China where the country is in a bind. They cannot close them down because they employ so many people. The idea of a state-owned enterprise is a very risky one, but if used correctly, the country can prosper not only economically, but as a whole.